let's see if we are online. How to and style. Right, and we are online. Alright, welcome everyone. My name is Sunny Nightmares. You can call me Sunny, or your worst nightmare, or whatever. I'm just setting an little alarm because I'm currently looking after a baby pigeon. It's a very complicated story, so I need to make sure it stays alive and is fed and everything. But anyway, let's continue. So today, my focus is on lighting specifically. So I find that when it comes to specific art styles and so on, rendering and lighting is a very important part of it. But it really depends on what kind of artists you are, what kind of things you'd like to draw, and so on. My goal is to be able to do comics and stuff. Um, Hold on, let me just. Where are my tools? Script settings, docs. Layers. There we go. Okay. So basically, I just want to focus on practicing that today. Okay, the main things that people say on the internet that is important when it comes to lighting is one, oops, okay, it is one is source light, which you need to identify where your light is coming from. Ambient light, which is your background, because more often than not, your background also has a sense of light. So your model or the object or your vocal point of your art piece is going to be affected by not just your source light, although it's the strongest light depending on what your scene is, um, and your background. If your character or if your model or if your vocal point is in an environment, then that's how it will be. It will also affect your vocal point. So your ambient light is your background that normally gives off its own light. Then there is bounce light. So for instance, bounce light would come into play when there is multiple sources of light. For instance, let's say this is my main source, then there's my background source, and let's say there's a street light, like a lamp or whatever, here, that also gives off a light source. No, sorry, that's not correct, Bounce light is, for instance, this is my source light, and let's say the pavement is a specific color as well, and that light, whoops, hold on, give me a second. So let's say the pavement is a specific light as well. The main source light is going to bounce off and have its own light. So for instance, if the main source light is red, then the color of the pavement would also be a very specific color and would also bounce off of the pavement. So if you have like a shiny ring that's being lighted, and you have, say, like a cushion that the ring is on, then the light that is coming from here is going to bounce off of this and also affect the cushion, let's say. And vice versa, the cushion could also affect the ring. So that's what bounce light is. Rim light is also another one. Hold on. Rim light is when sometimes your source light will also light up the back of your focal point or your model or your object. And what it's going to do, it's going to light up only the back side of your character or object or focal point. So let's say it does this, and it's only going to it's not going to light up the front whatsoever, it's only going to light up the back. So we're going to try and practice that today with a simple sphere. And when I'm done with the sphere and I've got the basics down, these basics, then we can move on to maybe one of my OCs. So let's see what happens. Let's delete this and move on to my sphere. Okay, so we're just gonna make a sphere. Let's make it blue. Just make a little circle. The background right now is gray, just so that I can see what's happening, and also so I don't get, blinded by whoops, the white background we always have with the default settings and stuff. Okay, so that is my sphere. So first of all, we want to identify the source light. And let's say, I think we can make the source light coming from here. So we have a shadow. Now what color is the source light going to be? And also I'm going to do this with multiply. Okay, so the quickest way to make shadows in an object that I find works sometimes, and I've seen other artists do that as well, is they duplicate a layer. So you duplicate the object, duplicate layer or mask, and you turn this into a multiply layer. See, so it's already dark. Then you take a lighter brush or an eraser. I'm just going to do this, and you erase the multiply layer to get like a natural looking source of light like this. So this creates a nice shadow, and you have your light source like that. So it looks like our light source is going to be a little bit lighter here, so that's absolutely fine. It's a very cold light source. Okay, so this is our light source. Now we're going to move over to bounce light, I think. So with this, we're going to choose a different color, I think. So we're going to choose red, and we're going to put this under all of our layers. And let's say this is the floor, and that is going to be our bounce light. So we just go big, nice and big, and just, whoops, okay, you know what, we're just going to put in a square like this. Okay, this is just a quick way to do it so we don't have to sit here all day. Okay, so that is where my bounce light is going to come from. But before I do that, I think I'm just going to add a shadow. Let's go to brush. I'm just going to put this on. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to put this on multiply and copy paste that color. So duplicate, multiply. Okay, so that's our color, but this is a very bright color, so I'm not sure how well this is going to work. And we just put a nice little shadow here. Okay, now we're going to do the bounce light on our subject. We're going to copy paste this again. Ooh, nope. And I believe we can do like a clipping mask. No, not like that. What about this one? Clipping mask. To just this subject. Is this on multiply? No, it's not. It's on normal. I wonder why it's doing that. Like, see, this is our color, and this is the color we want. So, oh, it's under the multiply layer. I see. So it needs to be above the multiply layer. So what we can do, I think, is, no, we're not going to copy paste this. We can do this. See, there we go. And then it has a kind of a bounce light. And I think this already looks pretty good. And it's going to cover, I think, most of the bottom because it's a very strong bounce light. I think I added a lot of red. So that would be our bounce light, and that is already looking pretty good. Let me just do that. Okay, that's my cue to check on the bird, so you guys just be patient. I will be back. Right. As I was thinking about this now, I am realizing that I have skipped a step, which is known as ambient light. So technically our background would be our ambient light. So we're going to make it gray and just, I think, put a duplicate layer on there and then see how we can affect this with our ambient light. So we can put maybe darken, erase, lighten, overlay. Let's try overlay, see what happens, and just go over it very slowly with the gray. Alright. And that is our, so we have our bounce light, which is the red. We have our ambient, which is our gray background, and we have our source light, which is coming from up here. But let's add some extra. Let's play around with our background a little bit. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to darken it so that it looks like there's like a shadow coming from this over here. Not like that, I think. Multiply this one so it's like that, and then we go like this and we just erase what we don't want, and we can play around with the opacity to see how it works out. Or we can just play around with the opacity to, you know, edit it how we want it to look. So we can play around with it. Gives a nice little contrast to everything. And there really isn't much like bounce light, I think. So I think what we're also going to do here is we're going to edit this so that it looks like there's some more shadow here. And then there's also kind of like a reason why the background shadow is here. And I think we can try to darken this just a little more, just so that it looks more affected by our gray stuff, the gray brush. It's getting lighter. Why is it? Oh, it's an overlay. Let's go to normal. Yep, we kind of messed that up. It's fine, it's fine. Let's duplicate this again. Duplicate, opacity, just to gray it out a little bit, I think. So it looks more like that. And with the background, we can even use a light brush to make it look a bit more interesting. So I'm going to just go to my tools, my settings, Dockers, and brush presets. Just put that here. All, and go to soft brush, this one. And because we are on layers, we do this, use a darker color, like just put some kind of like blend in there to really edit it a little bit. Okay, so we have our source light, which is here. We have our bounce light, which is the red. We have like a background, we have some ambient light. It's contrasting very much with the background, but I think that's good. Although the red and the blue are really fighting for the eye. I'm not making a lot of sense, so you guys are just gonna have to bear with me. But yeah, so I think we've got all of that. So now we've got rim lighting. So I think what we're gonna do is we're going to take this color, we're gonna go over here, we're gonna put our brush on lighten, and we're going to lock that layer, yeah. Maybe go over this one. Oh, the opacity isn't very high, okay. I'm gonna go with lighten, and just, it's a very subtle light, so you won't necessarily see much. And there you have it. So we worked a little bit on lighting. This is very bright light, so I don't think it really is fair when it comes to other kind of compositions, but you really need to play around because there's a lot of light sources, there's a lot of backgrounds and references and so on that you can look up to be able to make your pictures and so on a little better. So now I think we're going to move on. I hope everything makes sense, but now we're going to try to move on to an OC of mine. So I'm just going to sketch him up and just delete every layer that I have here. Layers locked. Nope. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to see what we can do. So I think what I want to do is I want to let my character contrast heavily with the background. The background needs to, you know, be the background and not take away from the character itself. We're going to choose a color, so we can maybe contrast a little bit with a specific character. So one of my characters, his whole thing is purple. So his hair is purple, maybe some of his clothes are purple, and I can work on a little bit of concept art for this character while we're here. And then we can also practice with the lighting. So let's do that. So, by the way, him and his sister are actually contrasting. So I use the typical opposite on the color scale for these two characters. Let me add a floor, maybe just tiny little bit darker, like this. Let's see if it works. Nope, we're still on lighten. Get this one. Yeah, that's better, but not. No, that's way too light. There we go. I want that to contrast a little bit more. So everything is green here besides the character. You know, just so we have a little bit of contrast in for the character. Anyway, let's move on to the character itself. So I actually don't remember what this character's number was, but the character himself, he's a very big character. And he is the fighter of the group. Me and a friend, we actually wanted to turn this character into a game, but we didn't really fall out. More like we both lost interest and our lives got really busy. I mean, you need to put food on the table, even if it's just your food, somehow. So he got busy, I got busy, and unfortunately, it is just how it worked out. Um, but this character, he went through a lot. He got kicked out of the house for not agreeing with his father's methods of disciplining, and for a long time, he had to be on his own. He joined fighting rings and so on just to be able to survive. He lives with someone, a very kind landlord, luckily. Um, but then, when he heard about his sister, he actually went to go and get her out of the situation she was in because he didn't want to see her hurt the way that he was hurt. And that's how he and his sister started living in the same apartment. He tries his best. Like, I like to think he is a father figure slash brotherly figure to her. So think about like Lilo and Nani type of dynamic. Oh, this better not be on the background. No, 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 no. Oh, come on. Okay. Well, this was a bit of a boring pose anyway. We can probably do better. I hate when that happens. Let me just check on my bird if he's still okay. Hey there. Yeah, it's nice and warm for him. So, with baby pigeons and stuff, you really need to just make sure they're warm because they cannot make their own body heat, and it's just the way that it is. So I need to make sure he stays alive, is warm, and is happy. Okay, so let's try this again. So it is that dynamic, except his sister is a little older, and she does tend to get into trouble every once in a while. Um, and it is difficult because she's always worried about him because he's still fighting in the rings and he's earning a lot of money when it comes to that. Just to make sure that she gets education and she'll be able to live a better life than he does because she's still quite young. And she might have a better chance in the world if she can just get educated, um, learn how to not become a target. So, what I mean by this is the lore of our world, it's complicated, and although I don't want to spoil too much, all I can say is that they live in a world where everything is controlled in one way or another. Controlled to the point where people will get medical degrees or they can lose their entire world to something as stupid as a bank error. And there is a rebellion in this world, which they end up joining at some point. And this is also where his sister really gets to shine, because she's a very fidgety tinker type person. So she likes to tinker with stuff, especially technology that she gets to take apart, see why it works, how it works, and just go from there. So he is the one who's trying to make sure she doesn't get hurt, and he disagrees and disapproves of her joining specific missions, even though he's the one who also joined in. Okay, I'm just gonna do a simple pose, I think. I don't want to make it too overly complicated, besides I need to work on the clothing. So he's trying hard to be supportive and make her feel useful because she will get into trouble as soon as he turns his back. So He's very protective of her, trying very hard to make sure she has a better chance. But after joining the rebellion and becoming targets, it just won't happen now. So all he can do is protect her and hope that in the future, whatever is controlling them won't be controlling them anymore. So he is your typical fighter type, like I said. Fights in the ring, fights anywhere that's going to give him cash. And this is a very, I wouldn't say unique, I would say it's a very weird art style, I suppose. With the Ninja Turtle arms and the legs that kind of widen and stuff. I like to think it's very close to Blitzozans, in Has-Been Hotel, where the forearms kind of flare out to make this weird arm shape. And then it doesn't stop there, it also continues with the legs. So he has a much bulkier body type to show that he has been training for years, and he stays strong by fighting in the rings, by training every day, and making sure everyone is safe. He is very reserved, very calculating. He's very smart in his own way, but because he's not a technology type person, me and my friend decided he would be the kind of guy to try to be involved with technology, but it backfires because he doesn't know any of the terms. So he knows some words. He knows some words that make sense to him. So, for instance, there's this thing called brute force. And brute force is a term that gets used when you try to hack something, try to get a password, but you can't seem to find the password, so you're just going to type in random characters, numbers, letters, in the hopes that you might find the right thing. And to him, that's like, what if I use this word and it would just, sound like I'm actually using the terms and so on. So in one of the scenes, I think what he would do is he'd say, as someone is trying to hack a door open, he'd say, "Oh, I'm just gonna brute force this." And the person who's hacking the door would look at him like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And then just kick the door open. And me and my friend thought, wow, that would just be so funny if that were to actually happen. So he does tend to use those terms and so on just to have more in common with his sister, because he's trying very hard to connect with her, trying very hard to be in her life without being overly overbearing, although he still technically is overbearing when it comes to protecting her, whether he likes it or not. It is just in his nature to protect her because of what he went through. Okay, so that's a pretty good pose for him, and it really captures his bulkiness. So let's see. So I like to think that maybe he wears tank tops, although another character already wears tank tops. So we could just give him, I think let's give him a tank top, I think. So that a normal shirt sleeves and stuff won't be a bother to him, and it won't get in the way of him fighting and stuff. Although it could be kind of like a crop top. I don't think that's a good idea though, so we're just gonna give him that. And a lot of characters in this world tend to have these Goku style pants. Whenever Goku goes to martial arts or has his iconic jumpsuit, his orange jumpsuit on, I really like the style of the pants, and I think it kind of leaked through because that was like the first kind of pants I was ever able to draw. So it's just what's comfortable to me, and it works, except where his has like no ending and it's just the pants and stuff. I like to add like this little seam to everything, to the pairs of pants that my characters wear, like a sweatpants mix, you know. But I always found that very fun to draw because the material was always so thick, and you could draw it easily because the folds were easy to go around and stuff. So that's why I tend to draw it. There we go. So that's his pants. He's got his tank top on, and then we have decided that we can have him wear gloves, or like bandaged gloves, that he had to learn to do himself because he doesn't like to spend money on things he deems necessary or unnecessary. So, like, why spend money on proper fighting gloves when I can just, put my own gloves on? His sister knows how to do it for him, and she does do it for him sometimes. I believe we agreed that she would also have made him specialized bandage gloves. Like she painted flowers or something on there for him. This is a nod to him being gay. That's also one of the reasons his parents threw him out. They didn't like the idea, they thought he was different, and I still am kind of wondering what the reason would be why his parents would have kicked him out, because we are in a society that is in the far future as being controlled and so on. Um, but it really depends on if you would be considered a good asset or not. Although the Red Herring Company probably would have sniffed around him by now because he's a very good fighter. And if you can become a very good asset to them, then you would definitely be kidnapped or you'd be brainwashed into becoming an assassin. And it works because that's just how Red Herring is. The main character of the game is actually not this character. I just like to draw him the most because he's got a very interesting character design, I suppose. Um, excuse me. But he's just one of my favorite characters to draw, and I feel a kinship to him. I think because in my childhood, I wasn't necessarily a fighter, and I didn't have the greatest childhood. So I see myself in him, but I see the self of me where if I wasn't so scared as I used to be as a kid, then maybe I would have fought, maybe I would have rebelled, maybe I would have been an entirely different person, um, and actually stood up for myself more, which is exactly what this character does. Is he stands up for himself much easier than I ever would have. So that's why he's one of my favorite characters to draw, because I see a lot of myself, or at least I wish that I was more like this specific character. Also, his hair is very long. We decided to him to have long hair and so on. And okay, I get the irony where I did say that he doesn't like things to be in the way and he's a very efficient type of guy. But his long hair is something I think his sister would have forced him to keep. Because, oh, it makes you look so good, brother. Like, you could definitely attract a boy if you have this hair. And he doesn't necessarily disagree with that entirely. He is attracted to boys, to men, to other men, to males in general. So he would do things where he would actually, have those kinds of traits and stuff. And he does like his long hair. It's something that he likes to use to express himself with, which is something that I also like to do. I like to express myself with my hair. I actually have this very cool undercut, although my hair has been growing out a little bit, so I might need to cut my hair again. But yeah, so that is more or less what he looks like at the moment. Don't want to make him too complicated because if we're still gonna be doing the game, then he needs to be able to be animated, and yes, it's 2D animation. We don't necessarily like the 3D thing, although we might make 3D models and so on to make the animation process a little faster, not in the way of using the 3D models for the animation, but just to 3D model the characters so that they are, so we can just, use the poses and make sure the characters are accurate and so on. But that's for an entirely other day. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. So we're gonna move over to line art, I think. But I think we're just going to put some colors and so on in here so I know what part of the pants has to be what, like dark color, light color. This is also a technique I find a lot of artists use, is to check what colors are too light, what colors are too dark using grayscale. And that's very clever, I think. So I'm going to do that. Those are white. Those are supposed to be white, so they're going to be lightest. I'm just going to lower the opacity real quick. Control D. There we go. So that it's much lighter. It's a little hot right now. Let me check on my bird. Hey, you're still good? Are you hot? Okay, he is flapping around and stuff. I cannot find my phone. I need a light source. Yeah, no, it's a little hot right now. Okay, so he's gonna just chill for a minute. I'm very stressed out about this bird. The wonders of motherhood. Ooh, okay, what is happening? Oh boy. Where did my character go? What? That's the clothes. Where did my character go? Oh my gosh. Just, oh my gosh. That scared me. I have no clue what happened there. I think maybe I erased it by accident. But it's fine, it's fine. These things happen. Yeah, let's keep the pants darker. And then the shirt a little lighter. Okay. And of course the skin, we just give a quick overlay. Right. Now we just do the face real quick. So he's got a very intense look, I suppose, where he looks almost bored, but it's more like he's just tired. Though he's not as tired as our local fast food worker. We have a character. He would be like the leader of the group. Our main character is not the leader of the group, just so by the way. But he is a fast food worker, or he's trying to do any kind of job he can in order to support his grandmother. His grandmother is currently in the hospital, or that's what it is in the game. Yeah, so his mother is basically dying, or his grandmother, sorry, is basically dying. And he needs to find a way to make sure she gets adequate health care. The medics and the doctors and so on are helping her, and it's a very hard thing to do, especially in our world, because often what happens is you need to either be very rich or you need to work very hard. And this poor guy, he was trying very hard to support his grandmother, and he actually had to give up a lot of his dreams and so on to be able to do that, which is very unfortunate for him. So imagine a teppanyaki chef or a future teppanyaki chef reduced to working at a fast food restaurant because his grandmother needs the money and he cannot afford to go to internships or get experience or anything like that. Yeah, I'd like to think he's got some facial hair because he doesn't always have the time to, shave. He's a little disheveled, a little tired. Just some imperfections and so on. He's in his 20s, by the way, or like late 20s at like oldest. Maybe I should give him a few scars. Like maybe he got some stitches or something. Okay, you know what? We're not gonna, stick around too much. This whole video was supposed to be about lighting. Alright, so now we're gonna work on some line art. Yay! Just checking on the bird. Be happy if you... Okay. Again. I have no clue what I keep doing. I'll have to check the footage later. Okay, there we go. He's back, guys. Okay. So something that I've learned is that you really need to clean up your line art before you actually apply your line art. So what we're going to do is we're going to do another draft layer that is cleaner and maybe a bit thinner and in black so we can work on our lines. And we can go over these things a few times so we don't have to, get it right the first time. And let's start from the top. So cleaner line art is our only goal right now. I hope this video doesn't get copyrighted because I'm humming this one specific song right now. Doesn't count if I'm humming it right. I don't know, you guys can tell me in the comments. I'll do some googling a bit later. Oh boy. Asymmetry, curse you. Hold on, I have an idea. It's gonna be a little bit of cheating. I'm gonna leave that for now. Okay, that's better. Yeah, it's a bit asymmetric, but it's fine. We don't want it to be perfect, though it needs to be just perfect. Right, that's one side. Now let's do the top part. I'm gonna multiply this layer so that the line art's a bit darker. Okay, let's see if we can sharpen his jaw just a little bit, you know, because it is mostly stick figures and stuff, but someone told me I could probably sharpen the jaw very slightly to make it look more masculine or feminine, because rounder faces are more childlike, so, or more feminine, I guess. Which is fine. I mean, there are feminine boys, there are masculine girls, and it's kind of weird how people treat media and stuff. So I'm gonna be a little, how should I say? Okay, I'm gonna rant a little bit about that. So for instance, some people that I know, they have this thing where okay, it's just the feedback that they have given me. So I will show them a character that I think looks very boyish, male, masculine. They will say, "Is that a girl?" I'm like, "How is it a girl?" "Because it's got long hair." And I'm like, "Come on, boys can have long hair too." "Yeah, but girls have long hair." And I'm like, "Yeah, but boys can have long hair too." And it's frustrating, and I guess it just really tickles my brain. But it could also just be what people expect something has to be. So for instance, if you're an artist and people don't consume a specific type of media like anime, then they won't necessarily see things the way you do. So what I consider masculine could be very feminine to someone else. And that's not exactly, it's frustrating because then you really want this boy to look more like a boy, but then it doesn't come across that way at all. And all I can do is either improve the art or change things up about the character just to make sure that people actually see it as a male character. Or just remember that I'm not trying to please everyone, and I'm not trying to appeal to everyone. And that is just, how the world works, and, just things like that. We'll see how this comes out. This is a pretty long video, but I think we're doing pretty good, or I'm doing pretty good when it comes to the lighting. When it did come to the lighting, I hope some of that stuff made sense to you guys. I did look for a YouTube video to figure out how to do it, and the person who was explaining it did a much better job, so I'll refer. I'm going to give him a shout out, I think, at the end of the stream, and just put it in the description of the video for my channel, because I'm going to also post this stuff on YouTube so that I have stuff to post, and the algorithm hopefully treats it okay. And yes, I did draw the hands like this, so I didn't have to draw too much detail in the hands. And nail or no nail? Let's keep part of the nail out, yeah. And your brain can fill in the rest. Pretty cool, hey, what your brain can conceive. Like, our brains have a very cool talent where basically it's able to fill in what we see as incomplete. And a lot of artists actually use this to their advantage. So for instance, imagine a circle, right? And you erase parts of it, well, you're still gonna see the circle, right? No matter how many tiny tidbits and stuff there's in there, you're still gonna see the circle. So a lot of artists have a very incomplete style, which I find very interesting. But despite that quote unquote incomplete style, your brain can still fill in the gaps and it'll still perceive it as a very specific thing. Pretty cool, eh? So I think artists are magicians, illusionists. There we go, one hand. Or fingers, I suppose. I might need to give them tattoos or something to blemish the skin or to make it a bit more interesting. I had this idea called nanotech tattoos, where you can have a tattoo inside of you that moves around and does things depending on what you want it to do. So, for instance, if you want a bird tattoo this day, you can have a different kind of bird tattoo the next day. Because it's nanotech, it gets to be very bright or very dim, so you have full artistic control over your tattoos and it's not always permanent. Although the idea stemmed from the idea of captivity. So, for instance, Red Herring had invented that type of thing so that it will always change and remind you you are not an individual anymore, or you are not supposed to have an identity, and we're going to change this thing based off of what we think of you, and so on. Which, I don't know how much meaning it would have, though. That's not good. Or I suppose it would like send a specific person messages or something like that on their skin so that they would see it. And perhaps in this sense, the nanobots, your tattoo, could actually physically hurt you or sever skin or heal cancer or whatever. And you'd have like this hospital on your body that literally repairs your cells and so on. Or it gets rid of wrinkles or changes your body to your liking, although it's a very painful process, so it's not very easy to do. Although I think nanotech would have their own numbing agents, like morphine and so on, which I think would be pretty cool. And you just have to recharge your nanotech, or you have to like dip it into healing agents, and then they will repair your cells for you. So yeah, you guys can tell me what you think about the concept in the comments. Ooh, this is a slow process. I should have probably prepared something for the stream next time. Next time I promise I'll draw something before I stream. I'm glad I ended up with a drawing thing. Because I was going to do a gaming video, and I think I am still thinking about it. I really do like to play games and stuff, so I think I will stream myself playing games. There's a whole bunch of games that I really like, but I don't think my laptop is very good, so I might need to play very low tier games and so on just to be able to play them. But if you guys want me to play games and stuff, you can always comment in the comment section, or if you're watching, you can tell me what you guys think. Okay, this is looking pretty good. eyebrows. I like the idea of the lines like this in front of the eyebrows, so we're gonna try that. There we go, that's better. He's got a really big forehead. All the more room to put the eyebrows. I think we can make the eyes pretty basic. Just tired eyes. Or maybe like that look of, I don't like you. I'm going to make sure you know about it. Don't touch my sister. Don't talk to me or my sister ever again type thing. Yeah, I'm gonna make the eyes a little smaller. So something that I've learned today, someone was talking about the character designs of Knights of Guinevere, and I thought they made a whole bunch of good points about how well detailed the designs are in even the smallest details. For instance, how the two main protagonists, how rugged they are, how imperfect they are, and I absolutely love how imperfect they are because they just feel very real. And then how perfect Guinevere is, and it is a very sharp parallel to a specific company. I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Um, Look how young he looks now without that the hairs and stuff. We can do without it. I think he's fine without them. Okay. So now we can work on the final line art layer. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna put some more line art on there. We're gonna use a different brush for this, I think. Just gonna turn up the opacity and see if I can choose a specific color. So his color scheme is purple, or at least his hair is purple, so it's gonna be very dark purple outline. You know, just to put a little bit more of that. Oh, so talking about the character designs for the characters, Guinevere is perfect for a very specific reason. She's perfect because she's supposed to be appealing, the ideal character that everyone loves, and that is just how she was made. It's the whole point, you know, with the Disney park, not the Disney park, the the parks in general. And I just thought that's very cool. Ugh. You know what? I think we can continue this session next time. I'm pretty tired. But this was a pretty good video. I think we learned something today and you guys got to see my character. So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. I'm just going to quickly check what the YouTuber's name was. So shout out to oops Tomko. I don't know if I butchered it or not, uh, but he explains a lot about lighting, or he doesn't explain a whole lot, but he explains the fundamentals of lighting. So if you guys are very curious about where I got my advice from, you can go check out his channel. He's an art YouTuber, so go and check that out. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful evening or morning or wherever you guys are, and I'll see you guys in the next stream. Bye.